It's the Brad and John Show.
It's the Brad and John Show. It's a Friday. Today's date is August 29th. This is the C block, the Charlie block, and we started around 7:40, but we're way late this morning at 7:46. John, you have no idea who our special guest is?
No, I don't have any idea. Let's give it to us, Brad.
Hold on a minute here. Let me pull up the phone. I got to do all sorts of crazy stuff now because it doesn't work the way it used to, and it's sort of frustrating to me. Here we go. Okay. Calling our special guest who shall remain nameless until he answers the phone. We'll see if he's...
Good morning, Brad.
It's Bill Eigel. Good morning, Bill.
How are you doing?
You'd hear me okay, Bill?
You're a little light, but I can hear you.
Okay, any better right there?
There we go. That's
okay.
Perfect.
Bill, we called you yesterday, and by the way, John Combest is here, but due to the fact that we can't afford the proper equipment, he can't interact with you on the air. It's not like when you're being interviewed in one of those big stations with our little rinky-dink operation. It's not as...
Let's go, Brad. Come on.
It's not as good as the other ones. Okay, Mr. Eigel, your name has come up recently, and matter of fact, there was an article written by the Spectrum News guy. Did you read that article by any chance, the Spectrum News Bureau?
Yeah, from Gregg Palermo, I did. I did a quick interview with Gregg.
Right. And essentially what it comes down to is the guy that you are wanting to replace is now necessarily not saying he wants to be replaced. And we're talking about Steve Ehlmann. Isn't that pretty much the gist of the whole thing?
That was the gist of it that I got, yes.
So essentially, and let me be blunt, I've heard the reason Steve Ehlmann has decided that he may not want to bow out and may run for re-election is because of you, because he's afraid of what you'll do to St. Charles County. What do you say to that, Mr. Eigel?
Well, the first thing, Steve has been around St. Charles County a long, long time. And I think that we have to start off just acknowledging and respecting that a little bit, that he has been a servant for St. Charles County. But I got to tell you guys, no one should ever make the decision, and I don't think that Steve will. No one should ever make the decision to run for office because of somebody else run. The reality is the decision to serve in office is something that is between yourself, God, and family. And it's a feeling of being called to serve and feeling like you can actually do something with the ideas that you're proposing to the constituents you're trying to represent. And regardless of Steve Ehlmann, regardless of other people that are in this race, I think we have some really good ideas that are going to take the good in St. Charles and make it great. And that starts with whether it's cutting the property tax burden, whether that's maintaining the growth that we're seeing in St. Charles County. I'm very excited about that. So when I made my decision, and Brad, if you recall, you kind of teased me for taking a few months to think about this decision. But when I made that decision, it didn't have a caveat that, hey, I'm going to change my mind if somebody else jumps into the race. This was a commitment that I was making to St. Charles County, and I'm going to follow through. I think the ideas that we're talking about are going to carry the day.
Well, Bill, I have a suggestion. I don't think you should be running for county executive. I think you should be running for attorney general. And the reason I say that is if we have attorney generals. I mean, when we elect an attorney general in the state of Missouri, they are in it for life. I mean, like, for example, let me think about this for a minute. Josh Hawley. Oh, maybe that's a bad example. Hold on a minute. How about Eric Schmidt? Let me think about that for a minute. Bad example. Oh, no, Andrew Bailey. Don't you think you'd be better as an attorney general? That way you can climb that ladder up to a higher position, Bill?
I'll tell you what, I actually don't qualify to be attorney general because I don't have a law degree. I'm not a lawyer. You have to be a lawyer in order to be attorney general, and that's not me. So I can't ever be attorney general. But I don't disagree with you, Brad. I think that for all the effort that was put into electing Andrew Bailey as our attorney general, to see him walk out the door just a few months into that, that's a big disappointment to me. I think that anybody in Missouri ought to be very disappointed that someone had such a little commitment to the state that they just, they were willing to walk away for something that has deputy and co in the title just a couple months later. I think that's pretty disappointing.
Hey, Bill, you and I are in the same boat with that. We had this conversation, John and I did, about how I think the Missouri people need a refund on his salary and also a refund for the election because, he should pay us back. Okay, having said that, Bill, I'll say this again. You surprised everybody by doing a great showing as coming in as number 2 in the Republican primary for governor. Isn't the St. Charles County executive, isn't that a little bit beneath you now, John, or Bill? Isn't that sort of like, I'm going to slide into this easy job, the county executive?
No, not at all. Listen, St. Charles County, I have raised a family here. I have run a business here. The people in St. Charles County have blessed me with their support politically for more than a decade. I can't think of a better place to be, to work, to live anywhere in the state of Missouri, quite frankly, anywhere in the United States. So I am thrilled to be here. I'm excited about what we can do. And the position of county executive offers an opportunity to lead on precisely some of the issues that I was talking about in the gubernatorial campaign. But because St. Charles County is even more red than the broader Missouri public is statewide, I think we have a real opportunity to do some things, whether, like I said, whether it's getting rid of personal property taxes, whether it's reducing that tax burden. All these things can be done at the county level because we have the flexibility to do that through our charter here in our county. And I'm excited about that. God's plan, we talk a lot about God's plan, and occasionally it's fair that maybe God's plan doesn't go the way you want. But in this case, God's plan has opened up an opportunity right here in St. Charles County that I couldn't be more excited about.
Bill, and don't take this the wrong way, but I think some people are afraid of you because sometimes you can be sort of a whackadoodle. You know what I'm saying?
I think this is the first time I've been called a whackadoodle in an interview.
Well, but Bill, let's be honest with you. You are, see, what's sort of interesting about that is, to a certain extent, I like that about you because a long time ago, one of my very first bosses said, there's 3 impressions you can make, good, bad, and none is always the worst. Well, you don't make a none impression. You either make a good impression or a bad impression. Some people love you. Some people think you're a nutbag. And quite honestly, I think some people are afraid of you because of that. How do you feel about that?
Well, I tell you, I think that the people that are supporting me because of the ideas that I'm talking about. The biggest idea that I'm talking about right now is cutting property taxes in St. Charles County. I've got a plan that we're going to get rid of personal property tax using some of the surpluses and efficiency in the county government to move those over and make St. Charles the first county to do so anywhere in the state of Missouri. And for the folks that I'm talking to and the folks here in St. Charles County, that's making a really good impression. And I think that folks are responding to that because they're looking for that kind of leadership where it says, hey, there is a better St. Charles that we can get to. Let's go there. The folks that I think look at me with a little bit more concern typically are part of the status quo that has preserved some of these government institutions that haven't been serving the people for the past 20 or 30 years. The status quo, Donald Trump calls it the swamp, whatever it is. I am convinced that it's the ideas that we bring to the table that people are going to rally around. And as people continue to rally around what we are describing as a better St. Charles County, I think we're going to find way more of the folks that are supporting our campaign than those that are worried about the possible changes that are ultimately going to be very good for them.
Now, Bill, I don't know, you were a member of the Freedom Caucus, correct, when you were in the state of Missouri as senator?
I do.
Do you know there's a new group called the Super Freedom Caucus? Have you heard of this one?
I have not heard of that.
If you go to superfreedomcaucus.com, it says, do you measure up to be a Super Freedom Caucus member? Can I give you some of the questions they ask? Because I want to see if Bill can elevate himself to be a Super Freedom Caucus member. Okay, you ready for the first question?
Okay.
Have you ever been to a
I'm
rock?
ready for the first question.
Have you ever been to a rock concert?
I have been to a rock concert.
Okay.
That makes me part of the Super Freedom Caucus?
No, here, I have to keep going. Have you ever put out the trash at your home in your underwear? Have you ever done that?
Ooh, gosh. I got to think about that. I don't know that I've done it in my underwear. I don't know that I qualify for that question.
Have you ever tipped less than 20%?
Have I ever tipped less than 20%?
Yes.
Gosh, I think I have, but I say that as a guy that earned a lot of those tips because, Brad, you know that when we were growing up, the standard tip was 15%.
Right.
And I remember I used to be a waiter at the Olive Garden, and the standard tip was 15% back in those days. The idea that the standard is 20, 25%, that's actually a relatively new phenomenon. So anybody from my generation has actually tipped less than 20% at some point. Yes.
Okay, next question. Have you ever looked at a man in a Speedo?
No.
Okay, next question. Have you ever looked at a woman in a bikini?
Oh man, this is I don't this is really not where I thought the interview was going to go, Brad. But I'd have to think about that.
This is because
yes, actually, you know what? The answer to that question is yes. And her name is Amanda, and she's my wife.
Okay, here's the final question I'll get of you. If Jesus was a Democrat, would you vote for him?
I don't think Jesus would join any political party, to be honest with you.
So, Bill, I have bad news for you.
I'm always going to follow him. How about that?
I have bad news for you. You flunked because it says right here, if you answered yes to any of these questions, you're not a candidate being the member of the Super Freedom Caucus. Get your life together, stop being a heathen, and try again. That's what it says. So, the Super Freedom Caucus... You know, Bill, I mean, high standards. You think you had standards with the Freedom Caucus, the Super Freedom Caucus. And matter of fact, it's sort of interesting on this, that if you go to the membership page on this website and it shows members, here's a list of all the members of the Super Freedom Caucus. There's nobody on the list. Bill, it's an exclusive club that if you work hard...
Nobody qualifies.
Nobody qualifies. Bill...
Nobody qualifies. All right.
I appreciate the fact that you let me call you today. Thanks for your text yesterday. And I am humbled by the fact that I'm the only guy who's ever interviewed you who's called you a whackadoodle. How's that?
There you go. I appreciate it. Anytime, Brad. Okay. Happy to chat.
Talk to you later, Bill. Okay, John. John, are you there?
I am here, yeah. Bill had some fascinating things to say there, Brad. I think, bearing the lead a little bit, you have purchased superfreedomcaucus.com.
How do you know that's me?
Because you know how I can tell that it's one of your websites, Brad?
How is that, John?
Because you misspelled the word caucus.
How do you spell caucus?
Caucus.
That's what it is.
And it's spelled wrong on your website. But, if we could be serious for a moment, fascinating comments, particularly about Andrew Bailey, about Bailey's decision to leave Missouri early for D.C.
Look, I agree with Bill on a lot of things, and I'm 100% with him. I think that is horrendous. And John,
but let's get back to the newsy part of this, though, Brad. And I think it was, maybe subtle, maybe not so subtle, because Mike Elam has said, first on our show, and then in other interviews, he said that if Steve Ehlmann is in this race, that Steve's a friend and a political mentor, and that Mike would not run against him. And Bill draws the distinction of, he says very blatantly, that you shouldn't make your decision based on who else is running. And I think that that's that's certainly a line in the sand between him and Mike Elam.
Well, I agree, but to a certain point, don't you think it's a realization that for example, if I was running for, nobody would elect me for anything, but let's say for some crazy reason that I was going to run for county dog catcher and I was the only guy on the ballot, and all of a sudden the most respected person in St. Charles County said, I'm going to run against him. I go, okay, I give up. There's no chance. You know what I mean? And to a certain extent, you see this all the time in races that, as opposed to the Missouri, the Missouri Secretary of State race where we had like 18 people running for it in the Republican side, and essentially it turned out to be, to the point where if you got, what was it, the winner, what's his name? Did he get like...
Yeah, and we could go down that thread forever, Brad, but my point isn't that, Brad, isn't that Bill Eigel is running. If Donald Trump was running out here, of course, Bill Eigel would not run. I mean, we both know that there's a practical element to it, and Mike is making a practical decision there. But what I'm saying is Bill is drawing the distinction there and saying, look, I'm not Mike Elam. I make my own decisions. I don't wait for another man to make my decisions for me.
No, I appreciate that, but I think that you can see it both ways. You can say that Bill Eigel should be congratulated for his viewpoint and a viewpoint on that, and the flip side of that is that Mike Elam should be congratulated as well too, because he has respect for Steve Ehlmann and knows that, and quite honestly, I think Mike Elam knows that if he were to run against Steve Ehlmann, he'd probably lose. Don't you think?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Ehlmann certainly has great name ID, doesn't he?
Right. And not only that is, once again, it's a situation is that people vote for. I mean, why did Donald Trump beat Miss Cackle. Okay, part of the reason is that people were sort of tired of the fact that this, and now we look back on all the crazy crap that happened with Biden, all the stuff that comes out behind the scenes, but people were not happy because of two things. A, the economy, and B, the border. And that's what Trump ran on. And to the point where if Bill Eigel would come along, see, the thing that's sort of interesting with Bill is, to a certain extent, I agree with Bill on the property tax thing, because the essentially situation, especially the personal property tax, okay, you don't own your piece of real estate, because even if you
rent it from the government,
you rent it from the government, and if you don't pay the government, guess what? They take it away from you, even though you own it outright. You've got clear deed of trust. You have no loan or anything like that. You don't pay your taxes. It goes on the auction block, and you lose your piece of property. Simple as that. But yet the problem is, the flip side of that is, I do understand that there has to be some way for the government to take in money for the government to operate. My problem is, I say the government takes in too much money.
They do. And when they're not taking in money? On Monday, Brad, and we're not going to be here on Monday because it's Labor Day, but we'll be back here on Tuesday.
Is that John saying we should get out of here? We should leave? It's time for us to go?
Well, I think it's 8:01, yeah. I'll miss you this weekend, Brad.
Okay, but John, here's one thing. My interview with Bill Eigel. Do you think I kissed his butt?
I think you failed to bring up the fact that you blame him every week for a lack of initiative petitions, and we got off the air with time left, and you could have asked him why he is responsible. Him and Bob Onder, and your words, are responsible for killing IP. Next time, Brad, I'll more forcefully interject and say, Brad, why are you not blaming him for initiative petitions?
Yesterday on the refugee station with Tony Colombo, he had on Justin Sparks, and he talked about this very thing, that has to be the number one issue for the 2026 legislative session. And I think to myself, okay.
You've heard that before, right, Brad?
Right.
And you could have, yeah. And
I've heard
that's
that
a good
before.
Opportunity to ask Bill Eigel about that next time we have him on here.
I've how many years in a row this year?
Hey, many years, Brad. Many
Every
years
single
at 8:02.
year. It's the same thing, and then nothing ever happens.
Yes,
because,
you're right, Brad.
as you say, it's the lobbyists who really control the state of Missouri, right?
Hey, it's 8:02, Brad.
John, let's go for another 10 minutes.
I'll see you on Tuesday, Brad.